Hey you guys, I'm glad you are here. If you don't know me, I know a lot of my viewers are already here, but if you don't know me, I'm Tammy. I'm the Siberian Wind, and I've got a new project that I'm bringing to you today. So my studio has a little bit different setup because we're going to step through this project piece by piece, and it is going to be a lot of fun. I did design this, but I'm super excited because I think you guys will see it's not that hard to put together, but it's really kind of stunning. So I'm going to say real quick hello to everybody that's in the chat. I see Donnell jumped in early. I got Charlotte, Michelle. I'm glad you guys are here. Thank you so much for jumping into the chat. If you are here and watching and you are not chatting, if I do have it set, I believe I've got it set to subscribers only. You do have to be a subscriber for 5 minutes, so hit that subscribe button, wait about 5-6 minutes, and then refresh your YouTube, and you should be able to chat and comment. If you are watching this on the replay, please make sure to hit that thumbs up if you like this content, hit the thumbs down if you don't. You know, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I want to know if you're enjoying this content. If you could do without it, you know, let me know. Let me know. This is a very beginner-friendly quilt. So before I get into what it's going to look like, because I'm super excited, I'm so excited, I'm going to go over 2 different sizes of this quilt. What you're going to see, what my sample is a table topper. It is a 4-block quilt, so it's not super big. But it is a good size table topper. The throw size that we're going to make is a 4x6 layout. So it's going to have 4 blocks wide, 6 blocks tall, and that's going to come out 60 inches by 69 inches. And that's not going to leave a lot of like extra room for, you know, fluff or whatever. You know, this is going to be the size that it's going to be, unless you want to add borders or something like that. But these are I'm trying to use up entire fat quarters. So you're not going to have a lot of extra waste with this project. This is going to be, you're using almost every little bit of fabric that you can out of a fat quarter. The other size is going to be a king size. Charlotte says that's a perfect size. Thank you. Yeah, this 60 by 69, it's a great size. It's easy enough to get under a machine, your home domestic machine, to quilt it. So you're not going to have to send this out to the long armor. And if you are looking for a quick summer project, this is great. If you need some quick Christmas presents coming up this fall or this winter, you're going to have it in this quilt. The king size is going to run 105 inches by 108. Same story. There's not going to be any kind of borders or anything extra because we are literally going to use every bit. And this does have a surprise twist to it that you guys are not going to get until video 4. Okay, so you do have to kind of hang out for all 4 videos because you're not going to know what the surprise twist is until the end. Dawn has commented, hello everyone. Hi Dawn, glad you are here. So the throw size has a 4x6 layout. The king size has a 7x8 layout. If you want to make the throw size quilt, Jean, yes, just a little bit, but nobody's seen the quilt yet. I'm just going over the fabric requirements. Yep, that's all I'm doing early. You are just on time. I decided to start a little bit early, but nobody has seen what is underneath here. So, you know, here and below, nobody's seen anything that's going on, okay? Except me. I'm the special one. I put it together, so I kind of have to see it. All right. So if you are just joining, the throw size quilt that we're going to make, and I'm going to make the throw size. That's what you guys are going to see me make. It's going to be the throw size. You are going to need a total of, oh, you're fine. You didn't miss much, I promise. The throw size is going to make a 60 inch by 69 inch quilt. You will need a total of 24 fat quarters. You will need 12 that are a focus print or whatever colors you want. I kind of am, Jean. You're good. You're good. Hi, Beverly. Glad you are here. So you'll need 12 focus prints and 12 background prints. Okay? So I'll show you a preview. This is one of my background prints. And I know it's not showing up very well on camera, or at least not this front camera, but it is a white print that has silver dots on it. I mean, it's so muted that from the distance, you're not going to see it. Now, my overhead camera, you might see it, but from there, you're not going to see the background. Like, it looks like it's white, but it's not. It does have a lot of silver prints to it. And then, so I am using 12 of those as, yeah, it is. It's very pretty. And it's got a lot of sparkle to it, so it adds that visual interest. So I needed 12 of these, and you can use any kind of variation, okay? Mine are all the same thing, okay? So all of my background is the same print, but that's not what I did in my table topper, okay? So you can do this a lot of different ways, and I will go over those ways as we get to them, okay? So if you have a lot of mismatched or whatever, do not panic, do not fret, do not go to the store just because you don't have it. If you have 24 fat quarters, as long as you have very distinct difference between your background and your focus, it doesn't matter, okay? So my focus prints are all kinds of different blues. This first one is this weird shade of blue. Yours is yardage. That is not a problem. We are going to go over how you're going to cut yardage because it is going to be different than how you cut a fat quarter. But we are going to go over that. So you are good. Do not panic if yours is yardage. I promise you are good. All right, so I'm going to bring the other camera over. You guys still have not seen the quilt blocks, so you guys are going to see my fabric first, okay? We're going to go over that first. All right, so, and I'm going to re-angle my light, so I do apologize. I'm not trying to blind anybody, but I do want there to be some good light on this fabric so you guys see what I'm doing, okay? So it is a blue, and it's got flowers, and it's kind of like a striped print, but it's not very small stripe. So it's not going to be blinding or anything like that. I'm also going to be using this print, which is very bright compared to that last one. And all of my focus fabrics are prints. I don't know how well you're seeing that in that camera. Maybe that's good enough. But it is a very bright blue, and it's got little flower motifs on it. And I did stick with a color family just because that's what I wanted to do. You do not have to stick with a color family. You do not have to stick with a particular, a particular style or whatever, but you'll see in just a minute exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the fabric that you're seeing in the main window, that is more the color, but this upper or the smaller window down here, that is like the print of it. The color is definitely off in that camera. So this one is also one of those, you guys are going to see it more in this other camera. It is definitely a darker blue, but it is also mottled. So it's not going to be, anything specific. This is another print that I'm working with, and this has some different colors added to it. Let me scoot over so I can get it to the camera easier. It's got flowers in it. So it's got some red and some tan in with it. So it's not just blue. But, I mean, if you guys can tell, all of my blues are just such different colors. Okay, so they're not all in the same blue color family. They are just different blues. That was what I wanted to stick with in making this quilt. So let's go with this one. So all 12 of these are different. All 12 of my blues are different. There we go. Let's see. There we go. And I am having to reach up to reach this camera, you guys. And the color is definitely more this color than what's in that smaller window. But that smaller window is giving you an idea of the print. And all of these that I chose are going to be fairly okay with being cut up. So it doesn't matter really kind of how small I cut it. You're still going to see enough of the blue. So you're still going to know it is part of the blue color family. And it's going to make sense. All right, this is just a marble. There's really not a print to it per se. It is a marbled blue. That last one had a lot of orange in it. But this is definitely all blue. But this is different shades of blue. And this actually has gold accents in it. And I don't know how well it's going to show up on that little camera. But the gold will not make a difference when we get back to the white with the silver accent fabric. Charlotte says, I've got a boatload of kaif and assorted solid fat quarters for this. That is perfect. Kaif will show up really well, especially against a lot of solids. So that will be a bright and bold quilt. That sounds gorgeous. I mean, you guys haven't even seen the pattern, and that sounds gorgeous. I'm not a huge kaif fan. I will admit it. I'm not a huge kaif or Tula fan, just because their prints are sometimes so hard to deal with. This one is more like a water look to it, or a steep cliff or something like that. It's not really a, it's not a predictable print. But for this project, those fabrics are absolutely perfect. I would even work with those fabrics for this project. That's how perfect they are for this. This is kind of a teal blue. It's not really in the same blue category as a lot of the others. But it is definitely a blue. It's got some green accents with it. All right. So compared to all those blues, this is that background. Let's see. So up in the small camera, you're seeing those little dots. All of those are very reflective, very shiny, very, very glittery. I don't feel like the glitter is going to come off of this. But all of my backgrounds are this. Okay? So I'm not mixing like massive color differences. However, if you want to, you absolutely can. Okay? All right, so are you guys ready for the drum roll? Should I tell you guys the name of the quilt first? Precious Low Volume. Yes, absolutely, is definitely low volume. Low volume is going to set off the others. So do you guys want to know the name first, or do you want to see it first? Let me know in the chat. Do you want to see the quilt block first, or do you want to hear the name of it first? Because I'm excited. I am super excited. So again, I'm going to be making the throw size quilt, and you guys can make a throw, a king, or you can just make 4 blocks and make a table topper. That's what my sample is. And that's entirely up to you. You have that option. And I didn't put it in any other sizes. I know I could have, but I figured sticking with 2 sizes is probably simple enough, and it makes it a little bit easier so you can kind of decide between the two. And then if you want to make something in between, then you'll have the toolbox to do it by then. It is raining outside, you guys. It like just started raining and it's coming down like crazy. Okay, so I have no comments in the chat yet. All right, so we are going to go with the name of the block, or name of the quilt first. And it is going to be called the Cut and Chiseled quilt. Okay, so Cut and Chiseled. I thought about calling it Best Man. Charlotte says your call. Yep. I thought about calling it, Best Man because, your best man ought to be cut and chiseled, right? So this is the direction of the block. So you guys are seeing it the correct way. Let me get my mouse out of here. My camera is kind of turned and angled, so I'm having to move around. Pam is here. She says, hi, Tammy and all. Hi, Pam. Glad you are here. All right, so this is a block in what is called Cut and Chiseled. That is going to be the name of this quilt, Cut and Chiseled. Okay, so that is one block. This is with 2 blocks. So it forms a secondary pattern in here. And this is with 4. So it forms yet another pattern in the middle. So I'm going to swap cameras real quick and hold this up so you guys see it full screen. Or as full a screen as it can be. Okay. And I cannot see the chat, so I do apologize. So this is the table topper size Cut and Chiseled. This is the quilt pattern that we're going to be going over. Now, you will be able to make it where if you have different background prints, you can either do what I've done here and alternate your background prints, or you can do it where each row is its own background prints. Okay, so there will be options. There will be a lot of options. All right, so I'm going to put this up on the board so you guys can ooh and ah over it as we go. Let's see. Try to make sure it's in the view because I had a little bit of problems with that earlier. All right. So I apologize. It's not very light back there. It's because I re-angled the light. Let's see. There we go. All right. So my forehead looks awful. There we go. All right. So you guys have a little bit more light on that. I know my tripod is in the way. I'm sorry. But that is the table topper size of Cut and Chiseled. So what we are going to do is, if you have not already pressed and starched your fat quarters, that is something that I highly recommend. Okay. If you do not press and starch them, you can still do this project. It is just going to be a little bit more difficult, and it will be a little bit harder to estimate where everything's going to fall. Okay. So it's a little bit easier when it is pressed and starched because you're going to have an easier time making accurate cuts, and you're going to have an easier time making accurate seams, and you're going to have an easier time assembling the whole quilt. Okay, so cutting is not going to take all that long, but that's all we're doing today. We're not doing anything but cutting today. Okay, so if you are just joining, if you do not already have your fat quarters, you're waiting to see what this was going to look like before you decided if you're joining in, then you still have time to go ahead and get everything cut. We're going to do cutting today, and we're going to do our first step of sewing tomorrow. So tomorrow's live does start at the same time, so 3 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow, and we're going to get the first step of sewing done. That is not the only step of sewing, but that is the first step of sewing. Okay? That'd be me, Tammy. So Charlotte, you're saying you haven't gotten everything ready? That's okay. That's okay. I do not mind that you were cautious. I am one of those cautious people too, so I completely understand. I'm actually going to swap. No, we're going to go back to this one. Jean says that she's still starching. No worries, Jean. No worries. So you're going to have this video to be able to go back to, and you're not going to have to worry about that. All right, so I'm going to pull out a very bright fat quarter to start with, and this is so that it's easier for you guys to see. So I'm going to walk through all the steps on this first one, And then every last one of these others is going to go the same exact way. Okay, it is not hard cutting at all. Everything in this quilt gets cut the same way. You do not have to have different cutting instructions or anything for the entire quilt. Okay, so one set of cutting instructions is going to work for the entire quilt. Now the surprise, there's a little bit of a twist there, but again, you guys aren't getting that until episode 4. So bear with me just a second. All right, so when you get a fat quarter, it is going to be 18 inches long, or 18 inches wide rather, by about 22 inches long. So my cutting mat is actually 22 inches long. And if I pull this off of the selvage, you see it is just, so if I get my selvage off over here at this end, my 22-inch line is off a little bit. That will still be okay. Okay. Your one concern is going to be that your shorter distance, so your 18 inches, I've got it folded in half because my board is only 16 inches long. I do not have a full 18 inches. So we are going to work around that as best we can. I should have measured all of these and I did not. So that is my bad. I do have another fat quarter of this, so I may have to pull that out. Bear with me just a second. Yeah, I do not have a full 18 inches. So let me grab the other fat quarter. And so I do have more fabric. So I can do one of two things. I can go ahead and pull my other fat quarter out, or I can cut this one. We're going to see if the other fat quarter is the same or not. You will need 18 inches. Your 22 inches, you have a little bit of give room, but you do need a full 18 inches. Okay, so we are going to see what my other fat quarter has, and if it is also short, which it looks like it is. Okay, so I'm going to use both of my fat quarters to make what I need, but this one will be cut off camera. Probably, because I didn't set up my iron. Okay, so when you run into problems like that, that is the only thing you need to make sure of. On all of your fat quarters, you need to make sure that you have a full 18 inches. Okay, if you do not, you need to find a different fat quarter because you may not have enough fabric. Okay, that is up to you on how you're going to do that. All right, so we're going to grab just a different one that should have enough. We're going to make sure. We're going to make sure because I did not even check that on my own. And I should have. All right. So, but if you purchased your fat quarters from a store, they should be the correct size. Some of my fat quarters are where I cut them. And they are definitely not up to snuff. All right. This one just barely has it. So we are good. All right. And this one is also short, much shorter the other way, but that will still work. Okay. So I'm going to fold this in half because my board isn't big enough. If your board is big enough that you can do a full 18 inches, then do it that way. You do not have to fold yours in half. I'm doing mine. Again, I do not have a full 18 inches this way on my board and my table is not big enough. So this is for show purposes only. This is not, what I would normally do. All right, so you are going to cut off the selvage. And you can cut right up to the selvage, okay? I'm going to bring this up to the camera so you guys can see for sure. All right, so where this white area is, that's all I'm worried about cutting off. The rest of this is going to be in the seam allowance. I just don't want the bulk of that. I do not want the heaviness of the selvage to be in my seam allowance. So I'm going to use the lines on my mat to line my fabric up, and I'm going to use the lines on my mat to trim that off. Great. All right, so our selvage is trimmed off. because you will not need the selvages. So that will be waste. Okay? That little bitty bit is going to be waste because it's selvage. Giovanna, she says, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Giovanna. Glad you are here. We started a few minutes ago, but that's okay. There's always replay. All right. So we are going to cut 2 strips that are 6 inches by 18 inches. Okay? So my fabric is folded in half, so it's 9 inches. And I should have replaced my rotary blade, but I didn't. All right, so we've got 1, and we're just going to line up and go ahead and cut our second 6-inch strip. And let's see, everybody's saying hello to Giovanna. Glad you're here, Giovanna. I'm glad you were here. I knew you were coming. I knew you were coming. All right. And there is my second 6-inch strip. Okay, so you will need 2 6-inch strips from your fat quarter. Okay? You will need 2 3.5-inch strips from your fat quarter. And this is also the same direction. So 3.5 by 18. Okay? So I've got my ruler marked at 3.5. And there we go. So I've got 1 3.5-inch strip. Giovanna, you're so funny. She says, how could I miss? No, you're not missing anything. I knew you were coming. I knew you were. I'm very glad to have you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was wondering why the chat was so quiet. Everybody's listening, though. Everybody's listening. All right, so we are going to cut our second 3.5-inch strip. Okay. So this strip right here, if you have enough to cut 2.5-inch wide strips, cut that. If not, don't panic, okay? I do not want you to panic. All right, so you've got 2 6.5-inch wide, or 6-inch by 18-inch strips. You've got 2 3.5 by 18-inch strips. And then whatever this is, all you need to do is make sure it is the same length, the whole length, okay? So granted, I really like when I can get a 2.5-inch strip, but you may not be able to get that. So out of this, it looks like I'm going to get 1 1/4. And that's going to be okay. We can make that work, okay? So if you have less than 1 1/4, that's fine. Michelle said she had to head to work when Debbie came on. Oh, gosh. Yeah, I did not catch Debbie. I have been running and running and running today. Giovanna says, I watched the replay to do the sew-along as I cannot sew and chat. And you know how much I love chatting. Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Got to have you here. All right. So, guys, this is a 1 1/4-inch strip. This is my waist. Literally, that is all that we are going to waste from this. And here's the selvage. Okay, so this is selvage by 18 inches. And this is threads. Okay. Almost, actually all of the rest of this will get used in the quilts. Okay. I promise you it will get used. All right. So there's my 1 1/2 or 1 1/4-inch strip. It's just going to sit off to the side. I'm not going to need it for a little bit. All right. Your 6-inch strips, you're going to need to cut 3 6-inch squares from each strip. Okay. Giovanna says, it was so funny, Debbie's live today. I heard that it was, but because I didn't catch it, it is what it is. I will have to catch it on the replay. All right. So you guys, this strip does not have 6 inches either. So if you run into this, here's what we're going to do. This is going to be we will cut this to the actual size. And I'm going to give you those measurements. However, I recommend if you can get 6-inch squares, the whole length of your strip, please get 6-inch squares. It will make your life a lot easier. And that's why I want you to starch everything. Okay? If you do not get 6-inch squares and you can only get something smaller, we're going to try for 5 7/8. And that's a really awful hard measurement. I really don't like doing that. Okay? The minimum size that you're going to need for the sizes that I've given you is going to be 5 7/8. Okay? If you need to cut if this will not make it and you do not have enough substitute fat quarters to use, then I will give alternate instructions. Okay? But if you can get, I am only 1/8 of an inch off. Or no, about 1/4 of an inch off. So I will be able to get 5 7/8. Okay? So I'm going to cut these 5 7/8. But if you can cut 6-inch squares, that's what you want to cut. Okay? So I'm using some doctored, some very, very doctored strips. Let me grab my other ruler real quick, you guys. I did forget to grab it. All right. Okay, this is a little bit easier for me to work with. It's not going to hang off the table all the different ways. Giovanna says, I bought vodka today. I have to make my fabric drunk. I love it, Giovanna. You are a blast. You are an absolute blast. All right. So we are going for 5 7/8. My strips are 6 inches, so I will have to trim the other sides to the 5 7/8 as well. Joyce says, hello, Tammy and all. Hi, Joyce. Glad you are here. Thank you for making the live. I appreciate it. I really, really do. So we started with our cutting instructions, but don't worry, I'm going to be going over it again and again and again because I have even run into a problem myself, and I am compensating for it. And that's why I wanted to wait to give out the written instructions. Charlotte's putting alcohol for the fabric. I love it. You guys are so funny. You guys are so, so funny. All right. So with cutting these 5 7/8 to cut across the entire length of that strip, I have a little bit of waste. Little. I can't even sew that. Little. Joyce says, sorry I'm late, had to go to the doctor. No worries, Joyce. No worries. I'm doing this series so that everybody can go back and re-watch as they need to. I want to make this as friendly as possible and as easy as possible to do. So what we've done so far is we have cut our squares. We were trying to cut 6-inch squares, and I couldn't manage that. And I may not have even managed with 5 7/8 with this one because I miscut. So there will be some outtakes when it comes down to it. Jean says, I think I'm going to need alcohol. Oh, this is actually going to be really, really easy. I promise. Even with me screwing it up, there is a way to fix it. And there is a way to make this beginner friendly. I promise there is. I'm panicking in my head, but that is because you guys do not need to panic. Okay? I do not want you panicking. This is not the time to panic. That is my turn. I get to be the one that panic, okay? You guys do not need to panic at all. All right. So that is 5 7/8. And this we're going to trim down to 5 7/8. And I really don't like 5 7/8, you guys, because it is such a hard measurement to trim, and not all rulers have the measurements. Jean, sometimes it helps. Here's one for you. Get comfortable and relax. Jean says, I'm glad mine is yardage. Yes. Yeah, if you do have the advantage to have yardage, you know, you will not run into this problem. You may run into other problems, but you will not run into this problem. All right. So we are going to go that these are 5 7/8. And if this fat quarter becomes an outtake, then you know what happened. And Giovanna says, I only have yardage. No worries, Giovanna. No worries. You will just want it starched. Hi, Fallon. Glad you were here. Thank you. As I throw Dr. Pepper in my mouth. Okay. Yes, you guys. Welcome, Fallon, to my channel. I'm glad you are here. Thank you, Fallon. I appreciate it. If my mat had good markings, I would totally be using my quilter slide lock. It's sitting right over there. But my mat doesn't have good, I don't like the markings on my mat. All right, so these are all 5 7/8. I want you to cut them 6, okay? So you're gonna cut 6-inch strips, and then you're going to cut your squares 6 inches. So out of one fat quarter, you should have a total of 6 6-inch squares, okay? Giovanna says, I will get it very drunk, believe me. Fallon, we are talking about starching fabric, and Giovanna does not have access to the starches that we do here in the States. So we have given her recipes for making her own starch with vodka, and she has picked up that vodka, and we are waiting for her to to get her fabric very, very drunk and starched. So that is the inside joke you are just joining in for. All right, so your 3.5-inch strips, these are going to be easier to trim, okay? You only need to cut 3 5.5-inch sections off of this, so you will have extra, okay? So I'm going to line my ruler up and cut a 5.5-inch strip off of this strip set. Okay, so there's one, and I will trim that up as well in just a moment. And here is 2, once I can see it and line it up. There we go. There we go. And Donnell is back in the chat. Am I taking you away from your boss, Donnell? You can tell your boss it's time to be off work. Just say Tammy gives you permission. All right. So this is scrap as well. This is technically waist. However, it is over 1 inch long. So we will put it for now as a separate pile to our 1 1/4 inch strip, okay? I want 2.5-inch strips, but when I can't get that, I will take what I get, okay? So you will need, from your fat quarter, you're going to be cutting 6 6-inch strips, 5.5. Jean, it is going to be 5.5. So it's going to be 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches. Love that. Yes. Love the that we're cutting as much as we can. Or Giovanna says, I love the small scraps. Yes, yes. I do too sometimes, but not all the time. All right. So we are going to dig in, and we're going to take another fat quarter. We're just going to take from the bottom. We're going to take another blue. And I may come back and cut that other one just so you guys can see it again. Donnell says, Tammy, I'm off work cleaning my front room currently. Oh, okay. No worries. All right. So what we came out with from that fat quarter is you want 6 6-inch squares. If you cannot get 6 inches, go for 5 7/8. And then you are going to want 6 3.5 by 5.5-inch strips. So these rectangles right here are 3.5 by 5.5. Okay. So these are going to go off into my project box. They're going to get put out of the way for the moment. I actually need to get my project box over here, but I didn't. All right, so this fat quarter is definitely going to be large enough. No matter, actually, yeah, it's going to be large enough. It's very, very large. And Giovanna's asking, Donnell, don't you ever stop? No, of course not. Janice says, hello, everyone. Glad you are here, Janice. Thank you for joining the chat today. Glad to have you. So we are working on the Fat Quarter Friendly project. And for those who have not been here the whole time, the name of the project is Cut and Chiseled. So this is, I know it's hard to see because the little window down here, but it is up there. That is my throw size version. And that's all that I have previously made. So we're going to make this even larger and we're going to get this going. All right. So this one doesn't have a big selvage to it. So we are going to go ahead and we're going to trim that selvage off. It's not a big selvage, but it is enough that it would add some extra bulk. And you don't want to add extra bulk to this quilt. All right. So selvage, that is waste. That is all it is. This is barely 1/4 inch. Okay. So barely. Okay. So we're not having a lot of waste with this, you guys. All right. So we are going to cut our 6-inch strip. So here is our first 6-inch strip. Let's see. I do not like this oversized ruler, you guys. Throw back that vodka, Giovanna, says Fallon. Oh, I love that, Fallon. That's hilarious. All right. Somehow I ended up... Okay. I was panicked, you guys. I was panicked. Giovanna says, hello, you dead, Donnell. You have so much energy. Yeah, Donnell does have a lot of energy. Janice is saying, hi, everyone, again. You got a lot of love in here, Janice. Glad you are here. Thank you for making it. I appreciate it. All right. So this is that second 6-inch strip. And again, we're laying this 18 inches wide this way and 22 this way. So we are cutting a 6-inch by 18-inch strip. So if you have more than 18 inches, don't worry. You will have a little bit of waste with that, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. All right, so we're going to line this back up and we're going to cut 2 3.5-inch strips. Okay. So here's one. And let's see, lining it up. For some reason, the 3.5 is easier for me to see today than my 6 for some reason, and I don't know why. All right, so this strip is definitely bigger than our 1 1/4-inch strip that we had from earlier. And this one is going to be 2 1/4. Actually, no, it's just going to make it to 2. It's not going to make it a full 2 1/4 because it's not even the whole way. All right. So we have a 2-inch strip. All right. Janice says, thank you. Happy to be here. Yes, absolutely. Glad. All right. So this is not waste, you guys. So this 2-inch strip, this is not waste. Okay. This is going to go with our saving for later, saving for the twist and the surprise. Okay. That is going to be in episode 4. You're not going to know what's coming up on those until episode 4. So just make sure you hang on to your cutoffs, okay? Giovanna says, Fallon, I don't drink. It is over 30 years that I don't. That is coming from a person surrounded by wine in this country. Yes, absolutely. Is the 2.5-inch for binding? Nope, it is not. It is not. You are going to need separate fabric for binding. and you will need separate fabric to go with your backing. But I can't give you exact measurements. The backing will vary from person to person. So for this quilt, my fat quarters may have been oversized, but I got 2.5 inch strips from it. Let's see, there we go. They're kind of hidden by my tripod. I'm sorry, but I got 2.5 inch strips that I pinned to the wall. That's my cutoffs from that. All right, so this is my 3.5 inch strips from the fat quarter that I just cut. And there's easily more than 18 inches here. So I will have what I need without any problems, okay? So from your 3.5 inch strips, this is where you're cutting your 5.5 inch rectangles, okay? So I'm gonna line my 5.5 up with the markings on my mat. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut. And I'm gonna go ahead and flip and trim this one. And I could wait to trim it till I finish cutting the rest, but I decided that I will go ahead and trim it now. All right. So there's a little bit of waste, guys. That's our 3.5 by 5.5 for size reference. This isn't even 1/4 of an inch. It's like 1/8 of an inch. Okay. So it's thin enough that you might be able to pull it apart. Okay. So we're not wasting a lot. Giovanna says, I like your colors, Tammy. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so 3.5 inch strip. I'm going to cut another 5.5 inch rectangle from it. And we are going to get one more. And that will fulfill what we need out of this. So if you have oversized fat quarters from where you've cut them or where someone else is giving you extra, go ahead and put this with your extra pieces. We will have a way to incorporate them. If you don't have extra, that's fine. But if you do, put it with your extras and we'll incorporate it, okay? I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do when we get to that point, okay? All right, so these are my 6 inch strips. And like I said before on this last fat quarter that I cut, you can cut these 5 7/8, but I want this to be beginner friendly. I want anyone who has never sewn before to be able to do this. And 5 7/8 is so hard for a beginner to cut, much less to sew accurately. So I would rather you cut a 6 inch strip and cut 6 inch squares, okay? If you do not have enough 18 inches wide and you are just destined that that fabric is fabric you're going to use, you can get by with cutting it 5 7/8, but that does not make this beginner friendly, okay? So please, if your fabric is not 18 inches wide by 22 or about 20 something inches long, you will need to find a different fat quarter and reserve that fat quarter for another project. All right, this one is more than 18 inches long, so I will easily have my 6 inch squares. Giovanna says, I make beads with those pieces. The little waist pieces, the less than 1/8 of an inch. Is that what you're making the beads with? Or like these pieces? Is that what you're making beads with? I'm curious. I haven't seen those beads yet. You need to share those. All right, I'm going to wait and trim that once I trim this. Because I really don't want to move my fabric around any more than I absolutely need to. All right. So give me just a minute, and we are also going to go over what you will do if you have yardage. Okay? I do not have an example because I went ahead and cut my yardage to fat quarters. But I will show you what we're going to do in that situation. Judy is here. She says, howdy everyone. Late but had a prior date with my granddaughter. No worries, Judy. I'm glad you got to spend time with her. Again, if you have a cutoff, go ahead and put that with your holds for later, okay? That's going to go into the surprise twist option. And if you don't have any cutoffs from any of this, you don't have any extras, or you just don't want to do it after you see episode 4, then do with it what you will. But I do want to be able to conserve and use as much as possible. All right, so again, we've got 6 6-inch squares. I'm going to lay these out real quick. This is my waist, guys. Literally less than 1/8 of an inch. Okay? All right, so let me move this over. So from each fat quarter, you want to come out with, let me make sure I'm picking one up at a time. All right. I want to make sure that it's kind of visible that we've got all these fabrics here. I know this window is kind of small sometimes. Okay. So 2, 4, and 6. So you want 6 6-inch squares. Okay. All right. Giovanna says, yes, the tiny pieces and the strings you get from the fabric. Then I use old thread to match the fabric. Oh, wow. That's exciting. You'll have to share some pictures. All right. So these are the 3.5 by 5.5. You're also going to want 6 each of those. Okay. So this is your minimum for your fat quarter. Okay. If you do not have this, you won't make the quilts. Okay. This is my focus fabric. You will need the same cuts in your background fabric. Okay. This is extra. If you have it, great. If you don't panic. Okay. That is the bonus twist. It's not going to make the front of the quilt. The front of the quilt, you'll need the 6 6-inch squares and 6 3.5 by 5.5 inch rectangles. Okay? So we are just going to do cutting today. We are not going to sew anything, and I'm not going to show you the next step until tomorrow. Giovanna says I will share the video that I got it from on Facebook. Okay, that's awesome. Please do. You have my permission. I don't allow spam in the Facebook group, but you have my permission for that one. I've booted a couple of people that were just coming in and spamming with, like, come get your famous t-shirt here, or, get your, special, unique, whatever, those kinds of posts. Yeah, I've deleted those. All right. So this is goals. This is the 6 inches, 6 6-inch squares, and 6 3.5 by 5.5 inch squares. Okay. Now, we're going to go over yardage after I cut one of these background fabrics. And I'm going to show you why I'm going to do this. Okay. So, and actually, you know what? We're going to go ahead and go over yardage. We're going to go over yardage. That would make sense right now. Pardon. It is really dry up here today. I hate that. Yeah, them sharing that stuff is just does not make sense. Okay, if you have yardage, this is not going to make sense from the way you are taught to cut fabric. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. So let's say you're using 3 yards of fabric. You are going to take your fabric, and I would do it once, a single layer. So you're going to have 44 inches across. Now you can go ahead and cut your fabric in half on your fold and do it that way, if that would be easier for you to handle. That's what I would have to do on this cutting surface. On my bigger table, off to the side, I could do it, but on this cutting surface, I would have to cut it down to fat quarters, or I would have to cut the yardage in half lengthwise. So here is my selvage. Let me grab another piece and I'll show you, because I did cut this from yardage, okay? But I don't want you to lose anything from your yardage because that's what you're using, okay? So on my yardage, one side has, this is Keepsake Calico fabric from Joann's. That is where I got that. This is what the other selvage looks like. It has this little fuzzy edge to it, so it doesn't show up as well. But if you were to say this is your whole yard, you know, your yardage or whatever, you're going to do the same thing to this end with the fuzzy selvage as you will do to this end with the printed selvage, okay? So you are going to take, and how much ever yardage you're using, I would not use a whole lot of yardage, but for this quilt you would need 3 yards, and you could do this, okay? This is definitely not what you would normally do with regular fabric. This normally when you cut fabric, you are cutting with the fabric. So you are cutting this direction. So you've got your selvage down here. Fuzzy schmutz, yeah. Yeah, fuzzies are so unique. They're so unique. All right, so typically when you cut yardage off of the bolt or off of your yardage cut, you're going to cut across. So you're going to cut selvage to selvage, okay? And that's typically 44 inches, 44, 45, especially when we're talking about cottons. If you're talking about garment fabrics, which we're not typically talking about here on the quilting channel, those can run about 60 inches usually. But for the quilting cotton is about 44 inches. So that's the typical length that you would be maximum cutting. And you typically fold your fabric in half. So you'd have your selvage coming down and meeting your other selvage, and you cut across. Okay. Giovanna says I rip mine. Yeah, I do too. When I don't need to account for the fact that some of these are printed pretty cheaply. If it's not a cheap fabric, then I would rip it. The cheaper fabrics, I don't bother. And this one, because it's got the silver glittery print, I'm not going to rip it because we're going to run into that same problem. All right, so you can rip this direction. You don't typically rip this direction, okay? But that is the way we're going to cut. So you're going to take your yardage and you're going to fold it, matching your selvage to itself. So the same printed selvage edge and the same fuzzy selvage edge, that's what you're going to match up, okay? And you are going to cut the same way we were just cutting. And you can fold this, I wouldn't fold it more than a couple of times. So I don't know if you've got the space to do it or how you would do it. You can swap to a larger rotary cutter as well to do it. I don't typically try to cut through more than 4 layers at a time with my regular 45 millimeter. If you've got a sharp blade, you might be able to get up to 6 layers. So just be aware of how many layers you have. But this is the way to fold your yardage, okay? So you'll fold it with the selvages together. And you're going to cut your 6-inch strip. You're going to cut your next 6-inch strip. You're going to cut your 3.5, your 3.5. And then whatever is left in the middle, if you've left this as a full piece of yardage, then leave that, okay? So once you cut your 6.5, your 6-inch, your 6-inch, your 3.5 inch, your 3.5 inch, then go to the other end, cut the selvage off the other end, and do the same thing. Come back from the selvage, okay? Leave that middle section alone, okay? The section that has the fold or the section that you cut, whatever that ends up being, leave that alone, but cut from the edge. That would be my recommendation. So because you're cutting yardage, if you are cutting, you needed a total of 12 fat quarters for the throw size, that comes out to be 3 yards, okay? 28 for the background for the king. So you were looking at, I can't do math right now, so you're looking at 7 yards. So you're looking at cutting a lot of fabric, okay? So cutting it in half along the length may make that a little bit easier, but this is still going to be thick cuts. If you can measure and make sure that it is at least 18 inches, if you've got a little bit of give. When I cut my fat quarters, I did cut them a little bit over. So it's like 18 and an 8 or something like that. That way I knew I would have enough this way to be able to cut mine. All right, so let's pretend this is the yardage, and I'm going to cut that selvage off. Let me slide it down. So I'm going to get that selvage off. Giovanna says, I have to make a baby quilt. Donnell says, I'm back again. Dang phone calls. Everyone knows I'm off work. That is the way it goes, Donnell. You got to turn that phone on Do Not Disturb, right? That is the way that I get around it. Mine is the moment that I hit that live button, that's when everybody calls me. That's my problem. All right, Pat is here. She says, hey, Tammy and Quilters. Glad you are here, Pat. Thank you for joining in the chat. Yeah, that's a good question, Giovanna. Was it important? It's always important, Giovanna. You know that. When somebody calls you because you're off of work, it's always important. It's always life and death, and it's always come put out this fire right now. We always need you right now. All right. So now my first fat quarter, I cut 5 7/8. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. And that's what I want you to do as well. If you do run into a fat quarter that does not have 18 inches and you can't cut 3 6-inch squares from the width of your fabric, then you need to cut them 5 7/8. Okay? You should have enough room for 5 7/8 squares from each of your strips. So that's what you need to cut a matching set in your background. Okay? So I'll show you in just a second. I'm not lining this up very well, so I've got to double check. Giovanna says, for me, it is always spam. Ah, adopted grandma next door that she takes care of. Yes, that is definitely important, Donnell. Gotta talk to her. Gotta talk to her. All right. So now I'm going to cut my 3 1/2, and I'm layering this so that it's easier for me to see, not that it's going to line up on the mat. So some of this fabric is a little hard for me to see. This is not my normal matte color. I may swap this over to the purple in just a minute, just because it's easier on my eyes. Giovanna, okay, you have permission to be on the phone. Charlotte's hoping everything is well. All right, so the 3 1/2 by 5 1/2, you do have to cut those accurately because you are going to need those to be those sizes. Okay. All right. So I've got my 2 5 7/8, and I have my 2 3 1/2-inch strips. Look at how big the strip left over is, you guys. We have some room. We have some room. Let me make sure I cut everything right. Did I cut everything right? I did. I cut everything right. So we have a lot of extra room. So we're going to do the same thing. We are just going to trim the strip up so that it is a uniform size. It doesn't have to be a specific size. We just want it, because we're already at the cutting table, we're already set up for cutting, we're just going to make sure that it is cut the same size down the whole length. And this one came out to 3 1/4. So that's a fairly big strip. Chloe is saying, just saying hi all and Tammy. I've been listening, but I have to go. No worries, Chloe. There is always replay if you want to catch up. Glad you were here, and thank you. And thank you for checking in. Thank you for letting me know you were here. I appreciate it. All right. So these are my 3 1/2-inch strips. And we are going to cut 5 1/2-inch rectangles out of them. And let's see. There we go. And I'm going to use my smaller ruler. It's a little bit easier. Yep, everybody's saying hi and bye to Chloe. I'm glad you were here, Chloe. Thank you. All right. You know what? Yep, we're gonna flip this mat over, you guys. I am not used to looking at yellow. I know this looks horrible on this camera. I am so sorry. I know it kind of gives that weird, just a weird effect. I know it does that. I'm so sorry. But this is a lot easier for me to see. So we're going to go with me being able to see over the aesthetics of the mat itself. All right. And it is my favorite color, so, I can't complain about that too much. My regular mat I cut on is purple on one side and black on the other. So I am used to seeing a darker color normally. And it's become one of my customary things. It's not necessarily something I have to have, but it is easier on my eyes. All right. Mine too, yeah. Yeah, it is. Gotta have, gotta have something that makes sense for you. All right. All right, just a little bit of waste. I mean, it's threads. Mine too for the color. Yes, Jean, absolutely. I love me some purple. I'm wearing purple. I was wearing purple earlier today. I have a lot of purple. Giovanna says mine is green. Well, purple and green go well together, in my opinion. Yeah, so I love purple. Purple is my color. Purple's my jam. I don't eat a lot of purple, but I definitely wear a lot of it. All right, so we have a little bit of scrap that is going to go into our surprise twist pile. You have a small one that is pink. Ooh, I bet that's kind of cute. I have another mat that's gray, but I think it's in my storage closet, and my husband left with the keys, so I do not have the keys for it right now, and could not go get it before the live. So we were stuck with my backup option. That's what we're coping with today, is the backup option. All right, so I'm gonna move this a little bit and trim the rough edges off of this. And then we are going to trim these 5 7/8. Giovanna says purple and elephants. Aw. Charlotte is saying hello everyone. Late getting here. And then I didn't have the chat box. Gotta love technology. I understand that, Charlotte. No worries. No worries. If you do have any questions, I can definitely answer them. So please, you guys, if you have questions about what I'm doing, or you have, concerns, or something doesn't make sense, please, please, please put it in the chat, because I may not know until later. Fallon saying, sorry, I had to hop away and help my son make his dinner. Been teaching him how to cook. No worries, Fallon. That is always a noble thing. If my husband didn't cook, I would probably starve, because I do not like to cook. I can, but I don't like to. So when it comes time to eat, it is either what is in the freezer that I can fix that won't take too long, or it is, just whatever fast food I want to drive through. I mean, I know it's not the healthiest option, but I am not a cook. So having a guy that can cook absolutely helps all of us ladies. Donnell says, I'll be watching the replay later since I've missed so much. No worries, Donnell. Guess who? Nancy is here. Hi, Nancy. Glad you are here. Glad you are here. Beverly is saying hi as well to her. I'm glad you guys are doing that for me. Thank you so much. I want everybody to feel welcome. Charlotte says, I'm a bit distracted. Okay. Is it me, or is it something not me? Just let me know. If there's something that I'm doing, let me know. Jean says, that is nice, Fallon. I taught mine now, and now they're better cooks than I am. There you go, Jean. That's the way to do it. My son and my stepson could cook, and I didn't have to very much, so yeah. Oh, the great grandkids are here. Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that's a good reason to be distracted. All right. So here's what I'm going to show you guys. And let me take you guys off this camera. We're going to make an adjustment. I want to try to make this a little bit easier. So bear with me just a second. We are going to adjust some technology here. Yes, Giovanni, he's in charge of cleaning his room and his laundry too. Same with my daughter. Oh, that's awesome. Michelle says, I have a man who can burn water. I revoked his man card after burning steaks and turning burgers into hottie pots. Now, I will say this. Just because someone can cook doesn't mean that they can cook well every time. And we do have to be gracious for that. Because, yeah. I am not a super picky eater, thankfully, so it doesn't matter, but I've had quite a few burnt meals myself, so it's no worries. Jean says I don't like the kitchen either. I can cook well, just don't like it. Yeah, see, I can cook well as well. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it. It does not bring me joy. In the Marie Kondo way of doing things, it would be one thing that I would like pick up and get rid of because I don't like the kitchen. It is not what brings me joy. All right, let's see if I can get this adjusted. Dawn says, testify. Oh dear. Are you saying you burnt something, Dawn, or that you can cook? What are you talking about, Dawn? All right. Giovanna says, my mom used to make us take turns in the chorus in the house, and we did have help in the house. Yes, absolutely. Donnell says I was the one responsible for cooking for a family of 5, plus every night growing up since I was raising my brothers. Now I hate cooking, so my husband and son share that chore. There you go, Donnell. That is the way to do it. Get the husband and son to do it. All right. Let's see. They both love cooking. After 45 years, my husband can finally cook where I can eat it. Nancy, you are cracking me up. All right. Jean saying hi to Dawn. Nancy saying hi to Donnell. All right. Fallon saying, Donnell, same here. Been cooking my whole life and it's not something I love. I do like to make bread though. Yes. See, you got to enjoy what you enjoy. Both, says Dawn. So, but Dawn, you're saying you can cook and you can burn. Okay, gotcha. Donnell is saying, OMG, Michelle, yes, definitely revoke man card for that. Okay, I will tell myself, give me a second. All right, you guys, you see that I am out. So I've got to be careful. And I didn't reload. All right. So while I do this, I'm going to be putting these 5 7/8 inch squares together. And this is so that I can make sure that they are the same size. Okay. So other than cutting, this is your only homework. Okay. You want to put 2 squares right sides together of your focus print and your background. Okay. So whether they are 5 7/8 or whether they are 6-inch squares, you want to put 2 of them right sides together. Okay. So now you can do this while you cut. Like you can cut them together. So you can layer 2 squares together, 2 fat quarters together and cut them that way. What is the name of these blocks? This is going to be the cut and chiseled quilt. That's what I'm going to call it. That's why I'm the cooking griller in my house, says Charlotte. Giovanna says, ladies, I've made boiled eggs explode once. I forgot I had them cooking and left the house. When I got home, I found eggs everywhere. Okay, so here's my story. And this is why, this is what plays into the rest of my life, okay? I do not mind cooking. I don't enjoy it, but I will do it. I do not mind it. However, what I mind is helping someone else cook, because your instructions are not going to match my instructions or the way that I cook. I was told not by my current husband. So, you know, you guys cannot get mad at my current husband for this. He did not do it. So I was told to put that they'd put the potatoes on to boil, and they were leaving the house with the kids for a concert or for dropping them off or something. I don't remember what the whole deal was, okay? But either way, I was to turn off the oven at a certain time because they had food in the oven that they were cooking, and that I was supposed to turn off. Oh no, I was supposed to turn off the potatoes. Charlotte says, "Got to do replay." I don't blame you, Charlotte. I do not blame you one bit. So you're gonna do the same thing. You're not gonna do it the same way with your 3.5. They do not need to be right sides together. You just want to stack them together. And this will help if you are doing a scrappy quilt. Okay. So if your backgrounds are different, you want to pair your backgrounds with your focus fabrics. And, you know, if you cut your 6-inch squares the same, I mean, it doesn't matter which way you do it, but you still want to pair them right sides together. These are just right sides up, okay? So these are right sides together. These are just right sides up. This is your only other homework, okay? So we're going to cut more fat quarters, so don't panic. Please do not panic. Charlotte says too crazy here, yeah. All right, so I was told to turn the potatoes off. Nobody told me that I needed to add water to the potatoes as well. So I didn't. I did what I was told to do. I turned it off. Needless to say, that pan got thrown out because they could not scrape the potatoes off the pan because it boiled all the water out, and I didn't know that. But it wasn't my job to cook at the time. So I have burnt potatoes to a pan. I've also burnt candy. I was making hard candy and I burnt that, but that was all on me. That wasn't too many cooks in the kitchen kind of thing. That was just me being me. Oh, all this talk of food. I'm going to be hungry soon. You guys. Okay. All right, so we're going to cut this fat quarter. And this is another one of the background prints. And this is my selvage. I moved the camera down to help. However, try not to blind myself or blind you guys. I'm trying not to. I promise I'm trying not to. Okay. I look weird now. Okay. All right, so my selvage is all the way over here now and off the page or off the screen. So I'm going to try to adjust and make sure that you guys are still in screen and can see it. All right. So the rest of my fabric is actually hanging off the table because I can do that. And that's what I'm just going to do. All right, so I'm just going to trim off my selvage edge to get it gone. Let's see. We are going to line it up a little bit better. All right, there we go. Donnell says that she loves doing casseroles. Giovanna says, "One cook in the kitchen only." Yes. And Charlotte saying, "Preach, Sister Giovanna." Yeah. I'm not allowed to talk about what just happened the other day. But it comes down to one cook in the kitchen only. All right. So there's our selvage. So we've got a little bit of waste, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all, you guys. All right. So this ruler is big enough because I've got my fabric folded in half. So I'm going to cut a 6-inch strip. All right. Donnell, I love a good casserole, but my family hates them. Oh no, Fallon. Casseroles are my claim to fame. That is how I feed my family if I am cooking a lot, because casseroles are the only way that I'm going to manage to make it because I can prep things ahead of time. Giovanna says, talking about potato, I had a potato salad with garlic and parsley and sausage for dinner. Oh, that sounds amazing, Giovanna. I agree with you, Fallon. It sounds good. Absolutely. That's just absolutely fantastic. All right. So here we go. Here's our second 6-inch strip. All right. Judy says she didn't cook either. It is restaurant, box, or delivery. Charlotte's timing with yum. I can agree. I know she's probably talking about the about Giovanna's dish, but it falls straight in the right spot. Yeah, I would, if I were on my own, it would be freezer, like what I can pop in the microwave, freezer foods, occasional dishes that I cook, and a lot of restaurant. I definitely would be. I'm not a good eat something alone person. Something is wrong with Matt with not liking the casseroles, Donnell. Yeah, I can agree. I bet it's probably the kids that dislike the casseroles more than Matt, though. All right, Donnell wants your food, Giovanna. All right, so I've got my 2 3.5-inch strips. This is my extra, and all I'm going to do is line it up on my mat and get my head out of the light. There we go. All right, I'm just going to line it up and cut it so it is level all the way across. And we're going to get 2 3/4. So you do not even have to do it as a 1/4 of an inch measurement. You can do it as an 1/8 of an inch measurement, however you want to do it. You just really don't want a whole lot of waste. I mean, we're talking very, very tiny pieces. I mean, tinier than my rings, you know? They're tiny. It's good afterwards, the vampires stay away, says Giovanna. You are so funny, Giovanna. I love it. It's all 3 of them, kids and hubby. They're picky about their food, says Fallon. Oh, no. See, that's why the husband cooks. That's why my husband cooks. If I cooked and he wanted to be picky, I would tell him it's his job to cook. There's no way I would be cooking if he wants to be picky like that. He either eats what I cook or he doesn't eat. Or he fixes himself what he wants to eat, and I fix what I want to eat. Again, that's why I don't cook. I let him do all the cooking for that reason. For that very reason right there. My husband is a very, very picky eater. I have met one person more picky than my husband, believe it or not. And it was not one of my kids. But I'm not I can't do the picky eating thing. I would prefer to give you lasagna, Donnell, if you have to do all that distance. Yeah, that's why he cooks. There you go, Fallon. There you go. That's why they've got to cook. There is no sense in us doing all the cooking for somebody to be picky. All right, so that is 3.5 by 5.5. There's 2 of them. And we are just going to do that again and one more time. And then we're going to have a little bit of leftover, but again, hang on to all the leftovers. Do not throw them out. Do not throw them in the bin. If you want to be able to do the twist at the end, then you want to have those leftover pieces, okay? There's going to be options. Joy T is here. She says, hi, Tammy and everyone. Hi, glad you are here. Thank you for joining in the chat. We are going to be cutting some more, so do not go away. You will see what we are cutting. All right. So again, these are they're small, but they will work. Okay. So they are going into our hangout pile. All right. So there's that. This is my selvage. So that was actually waste. I mean, it's so little waste. So little waste. Giovanna and Giovanna and Donnell are still talking about food. Oh, you ladies are getting me. Talking about food. I should never start a live hungry. You know, I just really should. I just should not do that. All right, I'm going to move this down so you guys can see it. Make sure it is in the camera view. All right. Even if it's on the edge. Italiano food, yes. Y'all are mean. Y'all are mean talking about food. But I love you guys anyway. I love you anyway. All right. So we are just now cutting our 4th fat quarter, okay? So when you get done with cutting your fat quarters, I mean, there's 12 of them to cut, so there's a lot of homework with us. Donna says, my hubby has chicken cooking. Oh, that sounds delicious, Donna. Sounds delicious. All right, so this is a 6-inch square. All right, so that's 2 there. We're going to cut our next 2, and then we should have one more cut. Or we should have one more. Yeah, we'll have one more cut. I think this one's a little bit larger than 18, so we're still good. By now, Tammy should know better with us. Yeah, I know. It's the same thing as not going shopping hungry. Yeah, I go shopping hungry too. I make the mistake. All right, so we are just under 6 inches. So we're at 5. We're gonna trim this to 5 7/8, and I will trim my matching squares to 5 7/8. That's just what we're gonna do. So I do not want you to panic if you have to do that. Okay, I was panicking at first because I didn't think ahead on that, but it will not be the end of the world. Okay, and we will take some time to show exactly what we're gonna do. Mr. is making salads from Subway tonight. Oh, he's making salads. Oh, that's funny. Joy T, I'm hungry. What did you all decide to eat tonight? Joy, there is a lot of options. There's a lot of options. Jean says she's going to take lasagna out of the freezer. That sounds delicious too. And I did not keep my leftovers. I did not bring them with me. I should have brought them home with me. I did not do that. But oh well. It will be what it will be. All right. There we go. That should line up. Let's see. Is that lining up? Yeah, that's lining up. All right. Parmesan chicken. Oh, that sounds divine, Donnell. Too bad you're too far of a trip away. Michigan's just not my state. Not gonna do it. All right. So I'm gonna trim this to the 5 7/8. And the rest are going to stay the 6-inch squares, okay? So, I do not want you to think that you have to trim everything to 5 7/8 across the whole quilt, okay? If you run into the problem where you do not have a full 6 inches, then only trim the ones that you need to trim. Joyce says, I'll have to watch replay, have company. Oh, no worries, Joyce. No worries at all. All right, so I'm going to pair these up. So these are, let's see if the camera will focus. Come on, camera. Come on. All right, so that's a right side, and this is a right side. I know it's hard to see, but those are right sides together, okay? So whether it's 5 7/8 or whether it's 6 inches, as long as your squares are the same size, and they're a minimum of 5 7/8, then that's what you need. Joy T says, those colors are pretty, Tammy. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. You do want to make sure that they are squares, though. You don't want to do 5 7/8 by 6 inches. You want to do either 5 7/8 by 5 7/8, or you want to do 6 by 6. Okay? Do not mix the sizes. Okay, that is very important. You will not want the sizes mixed, okay? Donnell is in there typing more about the food she is having tonight, and I'm going to be jealous. Oh, so jealous. All right. Yes, Jean's is homemade. Yeah, I know. I'm sitting. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm not going to get through a lot of this tonight because I'm going to be so hungry. All right, so these are the 3.5 by 5.5, and I'm just going to stack them together, okay? They're all right sides up. They don't need to be right side, wrong side, whatever. I'm just stacking them all right side up because that's going to be a little bit easier. especially if you do, now if you have prints that are hard to tell what's the front and back, definitely make sure that your squares are stacked right sides together as you cut. How about 5 7/8 and a half? Well, as long as your squares are square and they're at least 5 7/8 on both sides or on all four sides, then you're good. We can work with the rest. I promise. We can work with the rest. All right. So the only other thing that I want you to do in your homework is, so this is 1 fat quarter. Okay. This is 1 fat quarter set. So it's got a background and a focus print. Okay. Your next one, make sure that your 3.5 by 5.5 stays with your squares. Okay. So stack them together. I mean, like, make sure you don't have to have, 12 different piles all over the room, but make sure that they are stacked together so that way it is easier to find. Don't know, it's just law of being silly. Oh, I know. Oh, I know. I absolutely know. All right. So here's the other option of what you can do. So we're going to cut this, and this will probably be it because that'll put us about 2 hours, believe it or not. But I want to show you guys what you can do instead of spending all the time doing the other cuts. Okay. This is still going to be the same cuts, but this is going to speed up your process. I'm going to pair my focus fabric fat quarter, my blue, and this is actually my selvage edge. I'm going to pair that with one of my backgrounds. Okay. And I'm just going to put them both right sides up. You can put them right sides up, or you can put them right sides together, whichever way you want to go. Okay. And if you see here at the end, this background is a lot longer than the other. I'm not worried about that. As long as your width is 18 inches from side to side with your selvage edge, then it doesn't matter. So I am going to fold these together, and we are going to make sure that I have 18 inches, and I do, just barely. All right. So you can cut these together, and this will save you some time, okay? So if you're doing the throw size where you need a total of 12 fat quarters of each, then you are only cutting this cut 12 times, okay? You're not having to cut it 24 times, cutting 1 fat quarter at a time. You are cutting it 12 times. Now, if you are doing yardage, please, 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 I did not bookmark it, so I'm so sorry. I should have done some kind of way to bookmark it. But I did go over how to do this if you are doing yardage. You will not be able to do this where you're pairing them together if you're doing yardage and you do not pre-cut your fat quarters out of your yardage. Okay? So don't panic about that. Your cutting instructions are just slightly different. All right, so there's my selvages for 2 fabrics. Okay? Now I'm going to get this extra ruler out of the way. And beautiful color. Yes, thank you. I love these blues. These are just so gorgeous. And I have a lot of blue in my stash. And so when I was looking for what I wanted to do, I wanted to work with some blues. And it's been a while since I've really gotten a chance to work with blue. So it's kind of cool. All right, so I've cut 1 strip of 6-inch. So 1 set of 6-inch strips I've cut out already. And we're going to cut that next one. So again, you are cutting 6 by 18. So you need 2 6-inch by 18-inch strips out of your fat quarter. You want to cut it across that 18-inch side. Okay? So you're cutting your fold or your edge towards you or whatever is going to be your 22-inch side. Okay? So your 18 is is this way. Your 22 is this way. Okay? That's what you do want to make sure you do. If you do not, you may not end up with the appropriate number of cuts. And you may not be able to get everything that you need. All right, so we got two 6 by 18 inch strips. And we're going to get 3.5 by 18 inch strips. All right. So this is the main cutting instructions. Okay. Let me fix this. This one is wanting to shift. And so if your fabric is shifting, just take the time to make sure that you set it straight, that it's not shifted. If you need to fold it out, you just need a longer ruler. Okay, I brought my 24-inch ruler with me, but my mat is not 18 inches long. All right, so there we go. All right, so the one change that you'll make if you fold your fat quarters together is when you get to your extras, you want to separate those. Okay, so my extras from my background are going to be a different size than my extras for my focus print. Can we make one block at a time? Yes. You will need 2 fat quarters per. Actually, you'll make 2 blocks at a time. 2 fat quarters to make 2 blocks. So it's not. You're not going to make just 1 block. So making this table topper took 4 fat quarters. But all of your fat quarters are done in pairs. So you'll make two blocks with 2 fat quarters. Okay? That's a very good question, Giovanna. I'm so glad you asked. I did mean to say something about that, but I had completely forgotten. It didn't make the note sheet. My note sheet is like over here. Well, okay, it's over here. Is that on the wall, the design we were doing? Yes, it is. Yes, I will show it again here in just a minute. After I cut these, we're gonna go back to it and go back over it again. And I'll go back over the full cutting instructions because you're gonna cut this same thing out of all of your fat quarters. Okay? So this is my extra strip of my background. This is my extra strip of my focus. If I cut those together, then I would have lost a lot of extra of my background. Okay? So those are just going to go in my extra pile. That also is very pretty. Thank you. Thank you. Yep, I will be bringing it out here in just a minute. I promise. I promise. All right, to save me a step, because I can, I'm going to flip my fabrics right sides together for my 6-inch squares because I know that's what's going to end up happening. Okay, so you can do this too once you get your 6-inch strips, 6 by 18-inch strips cut. You can flip them right sides together. Those strips would be great for the binding. Some of them would be, Donnell, but not all of them. There's a lot of strips where you might not get the full 2.5 or 2.25 inch size. And so I kind of hate for you to lose out on using some because you were planning to use it for the binding. So that's not what we're planning to do with it. There is a different twist that we're going to use it for. I promise. And it's going to be in video 4. So part 4. And once we get off this live today, I will go change the name of everything. So when you come back tomorrow, the series is going to be called Cut and Chiseled. That way you guys know how to find it, where to find it. So all 4 videos will say Cut and Chiseled. And that's what the name of this quilt is Cut and Chiseled. All right, so my 6-inch squares are, as I'm cutting them, guys, I am ending up with them already right sides together. And so I don't have to come back and do an extra step. Okay. So if you were able to do that, go ahead and do that. All right. So this isn't even going to be 6 inch or 5 7/8. I should have measured, you guys. I didn't do it. All right. So I've got extra of my background. So I will come back and do that. So this is going to be 6 inches, and that's my bad. I should have checked to make sure that my strip was 18 inches, and it wasn't. All right, she wants to keep us on edge. Yes. That is the plan all along, didn't you know? All right, so this, because it's not big enough to be used as my square, I'm going to put it in my extras. I do have extra of my background fabric. But again, I cut it too short. It's my fault. And I did not look to see. All right, so this is also not 18. So we're going to cut all 3 of these 5 7/8 because Tammy didn't measure. So please pre-measure, guys. Just use that as a lesson. Pre-measure. Make sure your fat quarters are 18 by 22. Don't do what I've done. I'm keeping myself on edge, Giovanna. All right, so we're going to go 5 7/8. And I'm going to go ahead and trim the top as I go. All right. And this one's the one I've got to rotate. All right. So, but again, as long as you can get 5 7/8 out of it, you are still good. Okay. So just make sure to pre-measure when you get ready to cut. If you do not have 18 inches, cut it 5 7/8. Okay. That is the workaround. All right. I'm just glad I had my measurements. Could you imagine, guys, if I did not have my measurements? I would be so panicked. So very panicked. Do as I say, not as I do. Right, Tammy? Yes, Giovanna. Absolutely. That is the name of the game. All right. There's another 5 7/8. And here should be my last 5 7/8. And yes, I do have 5 7/8 the whole way around. So see, guys, I could not get 6 inch squares out of this, but I can get 5 7/8 out of the whole strip. So please take that as your lesson. Please just double check before you cut. And if you have 18 inches, go ahead and cut 6 inch. If you don't, cut 5 7/8. Donnell says I have to run for now. Time for family time. Love you all so very much. Thank you, Donnell. I appreciate it. All right, so before you run real quick, if you give me just a second, if you can, we are going to show this real quick. Let me get back over real quick. All right. So, guys, this is what we are making. This is the basics of what we are making. Okay? So, this is cut and chiseled. Okay? So, hang on. If you have a solid background, you're using one background for the whole thing, you will not achieve this checkerboard pattern here. Okay? You will have a fabric. I cannot talk. I'm so sorry. You will have a fabric selection here, and you will have a fabric selection here, and that will be a solid fabric selection. Okay? So in my quilt, what you're going to see is instead of this light print here, you are going to see blues. And then in this area here, you are going to see that white with the silver print. Okay? So that is what we're going to achieve. Okay? So let's go over this one more time. of what you guys are going to need to cut. Let me put it up on the wall again. Gotta love flannel, right? Gotta love flannel. All right. So you need to cut out of your fat quarter along the 18-inch side. You need to cut 2 strips that are 6 inches by 18 inches. Okay. You will need to cut those down into 6-inch squares. If for any reason your fabric is not 18 inches wide, if it is just less than 18 inches, then you need to cut your fabric strips 5 7/8. And then cut your squares 5 7/8. You need a minimum of 5 7/8 to do this pattern as it is, as I'm presenting it. Okay? So cut 2 strips, either 6 inches or 5 7/8 inches. Okay? You need that out of each fat quarter. You will also need 2 strips 3.5 inches by 18 inches. If your fabric is less than 18 inches, do not panic. Out of your 3.5-inch strips, you will want to cut 3 5.5-inch pieces. So you'll have 3.5 by 5.5. Okay? You'll need to do that out of all of your fat quarters. So your goal, if you're going to try to get all of this done before tomorrow, and what you will see me have ready for tomorrow, is you will see me have 2 6.5 or 6-inch strips cut into 6-inch squares, or 5 7/8 inch strips cut into 5 7/8 inch squares. Will the measurements be in the show notes below? Not until episode 4. I'm not going to do the published pattern. Actually, you know what? I will. Yeah, that's a lot of cutting to not have the show notes. Yeah, I will put it in there. I haven't put it in there yet, but I will do it when I go to change the show names. So you will need, out of each fat quarter, you will need 6 6-inch squares. Alternately, you can do 6 5 7/8 inch squares. Okay, either size will work. 5 7/8 just doesn't give you a lot of give room. It is right on the money. Okay, so 6 inches is a little bit easier. You'll have a little bit more wiggle room. Okay. The next step, or the other pieces that you'll need, are 3.5 by 5.5. You'll need 6 of those per fat quarter. Okay. If you are cutting this from yardage, if you are doing the throw size, your 3 yards would equate to 12 fat quarters. So you will need a total of 72 6-inch squares and a total of 72 3.5 by 5.5 inch rectangles. Okay. If you cut it the way that I showed today, you will be able to achieve that. If you choose to cut your yardage a different way, I cannot guarantee you will achieve that. Okay. I'm not saying you can't achieve it. I'm just saying I can't guarantee you will achieve it. Okay. All right. So your instructions for tonight, or to be ready for tomorrow, which you'll see me have available for tomorrow when we go live at 3 p.m. Mountain Time, is I will have all of my squares cut, and they will either be 6 inches or they'll be 5 7/8. And I will show you what you have to do no matter which way you have to go. Okay. So if you had to go the 5 7/8, you'll see what happens. If you get the 6 inches, you'll see what happens. Okay. And then the 3.5 by 5.5. Okay. So I am going to go ahead and I'm going to get off of here for tonight. If you have questions, if you're watching this on the replay and you have questions, please drop a comment. Let me know. Let me know what your question is. Let me know that you watched the replay, anything like that. If you've not already hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down to let YouTube know you either like or don't like my content, please do that. Let YouTube know that you are enjoying the series and enjoying the tutorials and things like that I'm producing. It really does help promote my channel and helps the content to grow. So tomorrow we will be back, and I will have all of my squares and all of my 3.5 by 5.5 inch rectangles also cut. Okay, so that will all be cut. And again, I will put the notes on what you need to cut in the description box below the video, so you guys will have that. But the full pattern will not be issued, will not be printed, will not be published until the 4th video. So we have tomorrow will be installment 2. It'll be episode 2. Then on May 16th, we will come back here to start back again with the next step of the process. And then on episode 4, so next Friday, we will finish up this quilt top. And you guys will get to see all of the cool stuff you can do with it. You'll get to see what to do with all your bonus cuts. So if you, I will also put in there, make sure to hang on to your bonus cuts. If it is bigger than an inch, hang on to it. Okay, if it is an inch or smaller, we're not probably going to use it. An inch is pretty small for a lot of people. I sew with an inchy size pieces, but I'm not going to expect anyone else to. Okay, if you want to save it, if it is an inch or larger, you definitely can. But if it's less, if it's an inch or less, and you don't want to save it, then put that in your waste bin. If it is an inch and a quarter and bigger, please save it. It is possible to work with, and I will show you what we're going to do as the twist at the end, and that will be in episode 4. So please stay tuned. If you've not already thumbs up, if you've not already gone in and set your notifications for the rest of the videos, please do so. The name is going to change. It is going to change to Cut and Chiseled. That is the name of the quilt we are working on, is Cut and Chiseled. So I will see you all tomorrow. Enjoy cutting. Do not stress about it. You will have time before next Thursday to catch up, okay? So please, please, please do not panic. Do not stress if you are not on the same speed as everyone else. This is supposed to be fun, and it is beginner friendly. It is not super easy, apparently, to cut 5 7/8 because I'm struggling. But do not panic, please, okay? We will work through it, and I will give some alternate options. So if you have cut something too small, or you can't get your 5 7/8 out of your strips, do not panic. Do not throw everything in the bin. Hang on to it. I will give you some options at the end. So you gotta wait until episode 4. And I'm gonna give some instructions and give with the printout that will be available for this quilt project. I will give instructions for how to work with those pieces if you can't get the full size. Okay, so please do not panic. I do have you, I have it thought ahead. I have you guys covered. So we are going to take care of everything. All right, so I'm going to sign off. You guys have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow at